Passengers watched in silence as a black woman was humiliated at the gate. Minutes later, their silence turned into shock when they learned who she really was. The afternoon sun poured through the airport's towering glass windows, spilling golden light across polished floors where shadows of hurried travelers stretched and dissolved. The air was alive with the constant hum of rolling suitcases, muffled announcements echoing from unseen speakers, and the low murmur of voices blending into a restless symphony of departures and arrivals. Among the crowd, she stood still, an elegant black woman in her mid-30s, her posture calm, her attire carefully chosen, a tailored blazer, a leather satchel resting against her side, and in her hand, a crisp boarding ticket. She held it not just as proof of passage, but with the quiet determination of someone who had fought too many battles to reach this moment. Yet the stares followed her, some curious, sliding over her with fleeting interest before moving on, others sharper, heavy with dismissal, as though her presence in the priority line was an offense to unwritten rules. A man in a suit raised an eyebrow. A woman clutched her pearls tighter. She noticed every glance, though her expression never faltered. Her chin lifted slightly, eyes focused ahead, as if she could already see beyond the glass walls, toward a destination only she understood. The line at the gate inched forward, each beep of a boarding pass scanning adding to the rhythm of departure. When her turn came, she stepped forward with quiet grace, offering her ticket with a polite nod. The attendant took it, eyes narrowing with a hint of disdain. Instead of lifting it to the scanner, she paused, lips curling into a smirk. With one deliberate motion, she tore the ticket in half, the sound sharp, jarring in the hushed space. The pieces fluttered briefly before she tossed them into the trash. "You don't belong in first class," the attendant said coolly, her voice dripping with superiority. "People like you should learn your place." A murmur rippled through the waiting area. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, some staring openly, others pretending to look at their phones. No one stepped forward. No one spoke. The woman stood motionless, her spine straight, her breathing steady. Outwardly, she remained calm, unshaken. But in her eyes, just for a moment, there was a flicker of pain, a shadow of old wounds reopening. She did not answer the insult. Instead, she offered the faintest of smiles, a quiet strength that unsettled more than any words could. The torn ticket still lay in the trash, but she didn't reach for it. Instead, she inclined her head slightly, her voice soft, almost disarmingly gentle. "Thank you," she said, as though the humiliation were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Then she stepped aside, heels clicking against the polished floor, and withdrew a sleek phone from her satchel. She dialed with measured precision, her fingers steady, her face unreadable. The air around her seemed to change. The buzz of the crowd dulled, as if the terminal itself was holding its breath. A few passengers, still uneasy from the scene, glanced her way. They caught fragments of her words, strange, unsettling words that didn't belong to ordinary travel. Agreements need to be finalized. No, compliance has already been confirmed. Yes, all shares are in position. Her voice was calm, clipped with authority, the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Passengers frowned, exchanging puzzled looks. A child tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering questions she couldn't answer. The woman closed the call as smoothly as it began, slipping the phone back into her bag. She stood quietly by the window, eyes on the tarmac, waiting. And though no one knew why, a tension now coiled through the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. Boarding continued, though unease lingered in the air. Then a ripple of noise broke the monotony. On the massive screens above the terminal, numbers began to plunge, red arrows flashing downward beside the airline's logo. Gasps followed, whispers swelling into a storm of speculation. The gate agents stiffened as their phones buzzed in unison. Frantic voices spilled from the receivers, and the color drained from their faces. Smiles that had once been rehearsed and confident now trembled, collapsing into barely concealed panic. The flight attendant who had torn the ticket stood frozen, confusion etched across her features. She glanced between the falling stock prices and the woman she had mocked, her arrogance unraveling into unease. Through it all, the black woman remained composed. She adjusted the strap of her satchel and moved with unhurried steps toward the lounge. The crowd parted instinctively, as though her presence carried a gravity that demanded space. At the lounge entrance, men and women in tailored suits rushed forward, their heads bowed slightly, their voices hushed with reverence. They greeted her not as a passenger, but as someone far greater. The truth settled like thunder. She was the airline's silent majority shareholder. It all unraveled quickly. Security arrived, not for the calm woman by the window, but for the flight attendant whose smirk had vanished into pale, trembling lips. She stammered protests as they led her away, her heels scraping against the polished floor. The arrogance that had once fueled her cruelty dissolved into raw panic, echoing in every desperate word she tried to cling to. Passengers watched in stunned silence. The air that had once carried whispers of ridicule now buzzed with uneasy respect. Gate agents, their hands shaking, stepped forward to issue apologies. Their voices wavered, the rehearsed charm of customer service stripped bare. But the apologies rang hollow. The humiliation could not be erased, and the crowd knew it. Then the announcement came, calm, resolute, impossible to ignore. The woman, revealed as the airline's silent majority shareholder, declared her decision with finality. The airline would be shut down, not out of anger, but out of justice. She had long suspected the rot of systemic mistreatment, and this incident had confirmed it in public view. The terminal erupted in gasps. Disbelief etched across every face. The powerful had fallen, and their downfall was born of their own arrogance. The airport felt different now, quieter, though no less crowded. The chaos of moments before had settled into a heavy awe that clung to the air. The black woman moved with unhurried steps toward the sliding glass doors, her heels striking the floor like steady beats of a drum. Heads turned as she passed, passengers making space without being asked. No one dared meet her gaze for long, yet everyone felt the weight of her presence. Outside, the day was giving way to evening. Golden light spilled across the pavement, painting her silhouette in brilliance as she emerged from the terminal. Her figure was steady, unshaken, her composure as unbreakable as it had been when her ticket was torn. But now there was something more, an undeniable aura of command, the kind of power that needed no announcement. She paused for a breath, the soft wind tugging at her blazer, the sun setting behind her like a crown. And then, as though carried on the still air, the moral of her story unfolded. Never mistake kindness for weakness. True power is often quiet until injustice forces it to speak. With that, she walked forward, leaving behind a world forever changed.